Did you see the fight between Greg Kasar and John Cornyn at the airport?
It is so funny you bring that up. Yes, I saw it. It was the first thing I saw. Like I know in the morning that I should not look at Instagram, and yet I keep doing it. I open my phone and that's the first thing I saw. And it sent me into such a rage to see Republican John Cornyn show up with burgers when the Republicans are refusing to fund 21 out of the 22 agencies in DHS. Like, that's what the Democrats are saying. We have problems over ICE. ICE has money. No, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. The problem is with ICE. So they can fund TSA right now while they deal with the ICE stuff, because the problems with ICE are real.
You're the one who rails against shutdowns.
Yes.
Now
shutdowns
you're for
are stupid.
shutdowns.
No, I'm not for shutdowns, but I'm for
this one.
Putting some restrictions on ICE. And I don't think these are restrictions that are like out of bounds. The point that I'm trying to make is that DHS has 22 agencies. They can fund 21 of them and then deal with the ICE stuff. That is a reasonable thing to do. And instead of entertaining that idea, he shows up with burgers and starts yelling at Greg Kasar. Like, these people are so unserious. And both of them, all of them, Republicans and Democrats alike, were on fucking vacation last week. This is the second time during this shutdown that the House has just gone away. And so their first day back, they're so angry. They have to show up at the airport and like with cameras in tow. It's such a performance.
Yes.
And you can see the rage that it sent me into. I am so sick of this Congress being full of it. And it got so bad that I like couldn't do anything yesterday. I just basically like hid in bed and I was like, I can't with this world anymore. So maybe, yes, I saw it.
Maybe if we give them more money and power, it'll fix everything.
So let me just walk everybody through what happened. The Republicans and Democrats negotiated a DHS package, a bipartisan DHS package that passed the House. And it was going to pass the Senate, but it was going to snow that weekend. And so John Thune said, all right, guys, we'll vote on this when we come back into town. Leave before the snowstorm happens, and we'll vote on it when you come back. Well, a funny thing happened that weekend. There was a shooting of an American citizen on camera in Minnesota. So then none of the Democrats wanted to vote for the bipartisan negotiated DHS package after that because everybody was very, very mad. So then there was a 10-day stopgap, and then the 10-day stopgap stopped. And now we're in this situation where the things that the Democrats want, whether or not you think that they're well-intentioned or good or right or they're good reforms, the Republicans will not give them more than what has already been given, which is pulling out of Minnesota. Kristi Noem has been fired. They have new people that are running ICE and the roving patrols are over. There was a letter that went out of things that they are willing to do going forward. But some of the things that they want are not going to happen. And part of the reason why they're not going to happen is because there's no sense in having a majority in the Senate if you're going to kowtow to the minority if they say that they're not going to vote for stuff. But a
person was shot on camera.
Yes.
Like, things did change. And I still think that like requiring judicial warrants to enter our homes is just basic shit.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're refusing.
But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I understand
this is
that
why
you
I
think
hate
it's
the
basic.
Republicans.
That's
because
fine.
we are accepting
Cool.
that as okay. Like, it's not
sure.
okay.
Yes. But that's not going to happen now. If you want that to happen, you can have that happen when you run the government. Like, that's what it is today. And
it's unacceptable.
The reality is that the Democrats don't want to take their medicine because when they vote for this, of which they eventually will, they will eventually vote to reopen DHS. Yeah, now, hopefully it'll be before something awful happens that forces them to do it within 2 seconds. That's usually what happens. Is there some other crisis that now makes it politically unpopular to keep DHS closed? The base will scream at them and will say, we're going to primary all of you and you're all traitors. And this is the worst thing that has ever happened. Like what happened the last time that they reopened the government. And they don't want to do that. They don't want to get their base mad at them right now because right now things are going well for Democrats. And so they would like to keep the good vibes happening and they don't want to get yelled at. That's what this is. So Greg Kasar goes out to John Cornyn's press availability and steps in front of the cameras to pitch his side of it. And then John Cornyn comes out with burgers And there's this very funny moment to me where John Cornyn tells him, reopen DHS, and then starts walking in with the burgers, and the media starts to follow him. And Greg Kazar thinks he's going to stand there and continue his spiel, but the cameras are moving. So then he has to start walking with the cameras, because this is not really about holding a stand. It's about being in front of the cameras. Well,
exactly. And so, I think it's pretty clear how I feel about this. I feel like it's completely reasonable to fund the part of DHS that has nothing to do with murdering us on the street. That said, this has been going on now for over a month. And the Democrats decided that when they had an entire week with the House gone, like the Republicans wanted to go down to Florida and fucking hang out with Trump. And so they did. The Democrats could have stayed in D.C., done sit-ins on the Capitol. They could have been on every podcast and every television. Like they could have been blanketing the airwaves, covering Washington, D.C. They could have stayed in town and actually fought this fight. They're not doing this. They're only, they're only being performative when it's kind of like work hours set by Mike Johnson. So it's like, if you're gonna fight. And they're not actually doing that. So I think they're going to lose this. Like at the end of the day, Justin, you and I are in complete agreement that they're going to lose this. It's just a matter of time. And in the meantime, these workers, and it's not just TSA, it's 21 agencies are not getting their paychecks. It's just TSA is what affects us peasants. And so that's why we care. But there's a lot of people not getting paychecks that have nothing to do with ICE murdering people in the street. So it's, shutdowns are still stupid. This whole thing is stupid, but it's like, if the Democrats are going to do this, do it. And they're just.
Because they don't actually care. We got a million emails about the Talk Shit Get Hit Act. So people really liked making the bill for the Talk Shit Get Hit Act, the Threat Assessment and Legislative Kinetic Strike Hostility Interdiction Treaty, Government Enforcement for Transnational Hostile Information and Terrorism Act is the one that I'm going to read. But trust me, we got every once in a while, there is something that lights up the cortexes of our audience, and creating a fake bill to fit the acronym Talk Shit Get Hit very much did that. So thank you to everybody who wrote in. Also, Get Thee to Mantua writes, I'm not going to try to convince Heaton that Shakespeare is good. However, I do recommend that you watch the movie The Complete Works of William Shakespeare Abridged, a live play about three men trying to do every Shakespeare play in 2 hours. The humor is right in your zone, and there's an obvious role that is perfect for you and could easily be a future gig if you should find auditions for it. I personally would cross state lines to see you in the Austin role. Watch it. You may not like Shakespeare, but you would enjoy him for a couple of hours.
That sounds great. I know that I saw The Complete Bible Abridged, like same theater company, because what you're describing is a play. I guess they made a film out of it, but it's a play, and they've done variations of it. The Bible one was really funny, and I thought that back when I was religious. So I assumed that the Shakespeare one's very funny as well. If I have the opportunity to see it, I'll check it out. I didn't realize it was on film. But yeah, that sounds good. I'll Act 3 will be me doing funny Shakespeare in an abbreviated capacity. I could see that.
Are you a Shakespeare gal, Jen? You don't strike me as one.
No, I mean, I really enjoyed the Romeo and Juliet movie back in the 1990s.
The Baz Luhrmann, Leo DiCaprio, Claire Danes.
Yeah, I was
You're
into
very
that.
much in the demo for that, because I'm in the demo for that, and we're about the same age.
Yeah, 100%. I enjoyed that a lot. That's when like Leo was his hottest, so I was into it. But the actual like going to the plays, I'm kind of with Andrew in that the way that they speak, the sentence structure, the iambic pentameter of it all is annoying, and I would just rather go to a play where I know what they're saying. Call me a simpleton. I'm okay with that.
I'm in the same boat. Again, if you really enjoy Shakespeare, hats off to you. But I have to do enough translating in my head as it is going on that I don't enjoy it. I would rather just see a regular play that's in reasonably modern English.
It feels like homework.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a gatekeeping thing, right? Because then some people could pretend to be like really, really, really into it. And you're like, I don't understand what they're saying. And they're like, no. Swirl their white wine.
That was my point, is I think about half the people that like Shakespeare genuinely like Shakespeare, and about half the people that like Shakespeare want to be the kind of people that like Shakespeare. And there's a difference between the two.
That said, I like the adaptations that have happened from it. So, like there was
like
a
Lion
movie
King?
10 thing. I don't.
Yes.
Think,
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, the Lion King is Hamlet.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. I was thinking
Yeah.
more about 10 Things I Hate About You, which was The Taming of the Shrew. And so I'd like the stories in the plays are great. Like, why make them so difficult to understand? So I really appreciate the artists that took his ideas and then went like, okay, we're going to make this easy to understand.
Yeah, I think that they survive forever for a reason.
Yeah. For sure.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young from not too far in Austin, Texas, coming straight off the volleyball courts.
Yes, I'm Jen Briney.
And from Washington, D.C.,
I'm Andrew Heaton.
and we're not wrong. On this edition of the program, we're going to talk about Arizona filing suit against the prediction market Kalshi. And we will ask, as The Atlantic does this month, are we in an intimacy crisis? A crisis of intimacy. All that plus your emails. Arizona's Attorney General filed criminal charges against Kalshi, accusing the prediction market platform of illegally operating a gambling business and allowing bets on elections and sports within the state. The case marks the first time a state has brought criminal charges against Kalshi amid a broader fight over whether states can regulate prediction markets. Kalshi argues that the charges are paper thin, saying its event contracts are financial products under federal oversight, not gambling, and shouldn't be subject to inconsistent state laws. The case centers on whether prediction markets are legal financial exchanges or unlicensed betting operations. Mr. Heaton, should prediction markets be regulated state by state by state?
I'm going to have to split this into should and ought. I'm going to say ought no, should yes. And what I mean by that is it seems to me that they are claiming we're not gambling.
Mm-hmm.
We're futures contracts. Therefore, we are not gambling. We are selling you stock in a financial product. And by virtue of that, we need to be regulated by federal financial authorities. As somebody that thinks that gambling is fine and it should be legal, I have no problem with what they're doing, but it does strike me as gambling. I think it's kind of hard to I think just coming up with a synonym can't get you out of that mix. There's a thing that they're selling that does not have an underlying asset like a stock or a bond. It doesn't have productive economic activity that's created by it, and it's zero sum. That strikes me as gambling, not as a investment in a financial asset. So just calling it a futures contract doesn't change any of that. And states have the ability to regulate gambling casinos, lotteries, sports betting. Like that's, I think, fairly inarguable. It's on state-by-state basis. They already do that. I would use a light touch myself, but can the state regulate them? Yes, I would say so. And I don't think that they've got the I don't think they have a compelling argument, at least based on my very cursory read of it, that they can get around that by just redefining it. Now, in terms of what I would do if I were in Arizona, I don't think I would be bothered by this existing. The three arguments that I see.
If you were a citizen or a the governor?
Both. I mean, I'll say like from depending on what level of government I'm in, if I'm the Gambling Regulatory Commission, yeah, I'd probably care, but largely because I want rules to be consistently applied. Like, I don't think it's a good idea to have rules that apply to some industries and then go, well, we kind of like that one, so we're not going to have the same rules apply to them. That's cronyism. I don't want that. But if I were a member of the Arizona State Legislature, I would use a light touch in terms of gambling regulation. It seems to me that there are like maybe three arguments that are opposed to gambling that really want to, if not regulate it, like staunchly tighten it. There's the classic Christian gambling is a vice, therefore we shouldn't do it argument. That doesn't really hold truck with me. I think that the government should not be there to make you a virtuous Christian. That's something that you can do on your own time. You don't need to have the powers of the state for that. One that I'm sympathetic to is the idea that gambling is very addictive, that there are people that do not understand the nature of the gambling, that overestimate the odds, and with less and less friction points in the process can lose their house very easily. maybe there should be some scaffolding to give people a means by which to stop if they're doing that. Like I would be in favor of allowing people to voluntarily submit themselves on a no gambling list within their state where they those exist. I think those are very good laws. Yeah. The third one, which I find interesting that is pertinent to this specifically and to not gambling in general, but to this on prediction markets, the oppositional position would be that having betting markets on democracy undermines democracy because it means that people now have a financial stake in the outcome of elections because they're gambling on it, and therefore they are prone to engage in disinformation, and it could lessen the integrity of elections. I think there's a point to that, but it doesn't really hold a lot of water with me. Regardless of whether you have gambling involved or not, a lot of people have a lot of financial stake in the outcome of elections, and a lot of people want to engage in misinformation regardless of whether or not they've got $20,000 writing on it. They might have a sweet job in the State Department writing on it. They might have presumed regulations in the cryptocurrency industry writing on it. So I don't really think that holds a lot of weight. I also think it's kind of useful because in economics, there's stated interests, stated interest and revealed interests, stated preferences and revealed preferences. When you ask people who's going to win the next election, people will be like, Bernie Sanders, 100%, absolutely. And you're like, so you've got to bet $1,000. You're putting that on Bernie? And they'll go, no, probably Hillary Clinton or whoever the thing is. It like you could, Romney, whoever you want to insert in here. Betting markets, because people have skin in the game, tend to be much more accurate predictive models than polling. And I think that they're useful in that regard. So that's where I'm at. I do think, yes, Arizona has the legal authority to regulate this as a gambling industry, but I would not use that legal authority very strongly. I think I would focus it in terms of fraud, racketeering, and trying to help people that have gambling addictions, but the actual gambling itself doesn't bother me.
Jen, should these prediction markets be regulated at the federal level or the state level?
I don't feel like it should be federal level because why would we do this state by state? Like these are apps that we can use in all 50 states. So if we're going to regulate it at all, it does seem like federal rules make more sense because unlike a casino, which you can like physically set up in a state, this is a very different thing. Like if they tried to ban it, let's say in Texas, and I'm in Texas, like VPNs exist. So it's like we're all getting around it anyway. So I just feel like the people that are watching porn here in the great state of Texas, like they've found a way. So I feel like if it's going to be regulated, it should be at the federal level. And when it comes to like just what should be regulated here, I mean, we all know I have issues with the stock market, but there are insider trading laws. I feel like we kind of need something similar for these gambling apps because there are people betting on things that they can directly affect. Prediction markets, my ass. They can, and that's the other thing. Like they're not calling them gambling apps; they're calling them markets, which I think kind of shows that futures markets are gambling. Like if they're saying in these lawsuits, like, "Oh, we're not gambling, we're a market," it's like, yes, you're proving my point. It's all gambling. So these are gambling apps. We all know they're gambling apps, and I think that there's certain people. Like if you're the CEO of a business and people are betting on your business, and then you can make the decision that sends it either way and make a shitload of money in the process, like that is just so blatantly cheating that I feel like there should be some kind of law there. So it's like where I feel like the stock market is largely gambling and we do have those kind of rules there, they should apply here. So yeah, I do think regulations are needed, but the state by state thing doesn't make any sense to me.
There are differences in how these things are run between a prediction market and a gambling house. A gambling house is designed to just get as much action on either side of the line as possible. So therefore, they set artificial markers to distribute that action. A prediction market doesn't do anything like that. They literally are just opening up a market and allowing you to buy a stake in that market at whatever level you are buying, that it is set at right now, and then you continue to roll over that amount of money that goes forward, and so they take a rake off the top of that. But this is not a prediction market cannot get destroyed by the outcome of an event in the way that a gambling house theoretically could. Like there are financial differences behind the scenes on these two things.
Yeah,
That being said,
elaborate, please.
That being said, it does trigger the same impulse in your brain. And as somebody who has a gambling inclined brain, I am also inclined to follow and be interested in these prediction markets. So I can understand when people look at them and lump them in the same thing. But if you ran like Caesars Sportsbook and you ran Kalshi, your jobs are different every single day. Like they are different products.
But that's kind of like a distinction without a difference. Like they all fall under the umbrella of gambling. So that's why it's like, okay, they're different jobs, but they're in the same corporation.
Well, the question then becomes, it's like, all right, like if I get the same brain impulse from eating Cheerios as I do bungee jumping, does that mean that we should lump them in the same category? Like no, they're two things that give me a feeling of adrenaline for whatever reason that we have in our brain. Now, I will say that prediction markets and gambling are closer on the family tree. The question is legally, how do we handle them?
Yeah. So I'm not swayed if we just use a synonym. If we just call it a futures action or an event contract or whatever, and otherwise it's gambling, I'm not swayed by that. But if the financial vehicle that you're doing it is substantially different, maybe you could talk me into it that the substance of it is separate and distinct and therefore should be FEC regulation as opposed to. So how does this work on that level? Like if I go by, walk me through.
So as much as I don't agree with Jen's take that the stock market is gambling, I don't think that it is gambling. I do think that there is a meaningful difference between investment and gambling. But
me too. Again,
sane people can disagree on things like this. I will, in this case, back her up and back her play and say that prediction markets are somewhere in between investment and just straight up gambling, right? So gambling is on sports, which is what we have legal in this country, a random number generator. I have no idea how the ball is going to bounce in the World Baseball Classic final against the United States and Venezuela. The line was Venezuela getting a run and a half. That wound up being a winning bet. You could actually win money if you took the Venezuela money line or you took the Venezuela getting the run and a half because they wound up winning outright. But that is random, totally random. Yes, there are predictive ideas of who's playing in the game, but you have no idea how that's going to come out. Investing, on the other side of that, there's a ton of different information. There's publicly available stuff. And what you are doing is saying, if you're going to try and beat the market, if you're going to try to make money, you're saying, okay, I believe that most investments are reading this information wrong. And I'm going to therefore invest that these quarterly reports that are out there, they are not being interpreted in the right way. The stock is depressed artificially. I would like to put money in and therefore it will go up. Prediction markets are kind of somewhere in between. You are betting on.
It all sounds like gambling to me.
I know it's yes. Your point has been made on this.
You're betting that it's going to go up.
I'm backing you up. I'm agreeing with you here. Don't harass me. I'm agreeing with you. Prediction markets are taking things that are not random number generators and betting and staking your claim as to the outcome of these things that should not be as random as sports. Now, they also include sports, which I don't think does them any favors, the fact that they are moving into the world of sports markets as well. But it's I don't blame anybody for not seeing a lot of difference between these things because in the same way that we don't quite understand why, if weed is illegal in Texas, why am I able to buy edibles and vape pens at gas stations that get you high?
Because it's Delta 9.
Exactly.
It's so different.
Because it's, we double distilled a bunch of grass and it turns out that gets you high the same way that weed does. It's like, okay, so why is it legal? Because the law. Look, we followed the law. I think that there's distinction without a difference there. I do believe that what we are seeing now is the last outposts of an age of the libertine that will eventually be reclaimed by a counterpunch of conservatism. And I think that that's coming for betting apps. I think it's coming for these prediction markets. I think it's coming for the weed stuff. I think it's coming possibly as far as like gay marriage, but like all the things that we looked at as pushing society forward to allow personal freedom. Now the dominant conversation that I am seeing, and with dominant conversation comes political action, are about these things went too far. And that's what I think you are looking at here, is that Arizona, the Attorney General of Arizona sees a political cause here more than he sees a active threat to his constituencies to say, we are gambling too much. We are ceding our authority to control this too much. And so therefore I'm going to step up and file suit against this prediction market because there needs to be more of an interdiction by the state into things that can result in a poorer quality of life for my citizens.
Yeah, the same people that think welfare is a symptom of the nanny state are like, you can't smoke weed or gamble or these.
I don't think, people. I see this from liberal causes. I see this from there's the New York Times came out and said we were wrong about weed. We need to do more about weed regulation. McKay Hopkins, who is a Mormon, but a hard never Trumper that essentially falls more into the mainstream Democratic camp than he does anywhere on the right these days. He just wrote a whole thing about the evils of gambling, about how he got the Atlantic staked him $10,000 and then like a fucking dork, he wasted it because he's an idiot. And I hated the fucking piece.
Wait. So did the Atlantic give him money to gamble with to write a story?
Yep.
And he thought that was evil. That sounds, I will do that. The Atlantic, call me. Atlantic, call me. Give me $10,000. I'll go on these election betting markets.
He's a devout Mormon. There's obviously a religious play that came into it, but it was basically the Simpsons episode where Marge becomes gambler. Like it was, I don't know. In general, I feel that this is just my own. Well, here, let's talk about this, and then I can give my larger sociological.
Wait, real quick, I got a gambling anecdote. Yeah. My buddy Jimmy Fallon, who replaced me as the writer for Kennedy at Fox Business, very talented comedian, very, very funny guy, Jimmy Fallon. He's now a extremely popular radio host. Jimmy, for a while, after he was a cab driver, became like professional gambling buddy, where casinos would fly him out to Vegas and give him a fuck ton of money to gamble with just so he would do it around rich people.
Yeah.
So like they would be like, here's $10,000. We like, if you gamble well and you keep the money, great. You keep the profit. If you spend it, we couldn't give less of a shit. We just want you to hang out in this room full of rich people and make large bets around them so that they're like, yeah, I'll do it too. I'll jump in. And like, that was his job for a little bit.
That's a great gig.
It seems like a great gig, playing with the house's money.
Well, and just being just good vibes, just sitting at the high limit tables and just being like good ass vibes. Like that's just awesome. That's a great place to be. Probably met a few celebrities that way.
Yeah.
I think regulation's coming for a lot of this stuff. And I do think that a lot of it's sensible. One of the things that I did really agree with in the McKay Hopkins piece was that he talked about there should be a nationwide database for these forms that you were talking about, Heaton, where you can just take yourself off the rolls. Mm-hmm. You are now blacklisting yourself from gambling sites. I think that should be nationwide. I think there's no reason why that should happen. I also would say that gambling apps should have harsher limits on who they can kick off their platform and possibly even how much money you're allowed to wager on them compared to physical casinos, because physical casinos hire people in the neighborhoods that they are operating in. They can create tourism dollars that apps cannot. So I would lean more toward punitive restrictions on apps than I would on casinos themselves, which I think should probably have more of a leeway in those kinds of things. But I think a lot of this is coming because it's gone wild for, a decade essentially.
But what do we do about people that are able to essentially like rig the markets? Like, do you also support something along the lines of insider trading laws for these prediction markets?
Oh, yeah.
And how would we do it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the question, in the same way that insider trading is a question of like, okay, well, what is the line? There are like lines in the sand of when you know and who you tell and what you do and what you bet and or what you
God knows members of Congress have found a way around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard to enforce. Should there be an enforcement mechanism for the most egregious cases, the people that are betting $250,000 that the Ayatollah's gonna die and then the Ayatollah dies, which I don't think was exactly correct because they now don't do death predictions. That's something that they have voluntarily decided that they are not going to do. But still, those guys, like, will there be a military action in Iran before the end of, or before March 1st, I think was one of the big markets. And then all of a sudden
Hegseth's able to cash out, not that he did. I'm not claiming that he did. But like the fact that that's legal.
Somebody dumped a gigantic amount of money in there, like right before it happened. And then it happened. Now, that being said, it's like, how do you keep that news that secret? Like, I knew before. This was in January when there were all the street demonstrations in Iran. I was getting told by sources that I have that like planes were in the air and were like screaming toward Iran. And then they were called off by Trump because the Iranian government convinced them that they weren't killing as many people as he had believed that they were killing or something like that.
Well, we moved like an aircraft carrier. I feel like the Iran one is a less apt example than like Venezuela. Because that was really out of the blue. I mean, we didn't have weeks in advance.
Yeah, but we had all that sea power out there too. It's not like we didn't think that something was going to happen. It was just when it was going to happen.
Yeah, but like, okay, let's just like play the what if game. Like, what if someone had bet that the president of Venezuela was going to be kidnapped and then made a bunch of money? Like something super specific happens where it's like only people in the know can really do that, and then they're able to cash out. Like those are the situations that we're starting to suspect are happening. And I like legit don't know how we regulate that or police it. And yet I think that is one of the most corrupting things that is being made possible by these apps.
Well, remember, I mean, like the markets exist that then somebody invests against, right? So it's like for the Venezuela thing, it was like, that actually was very controversial because the market said, will there be military action in Venezuela before X date? Because everything has to have like a provable.
But it's a police
time.
Action.
And they didn't pay it out. By the way, they didn't pay it out. So people that invested, no, they didn't pay it out.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because it wasn't a military action. It was a police action.
Okay.
Well, but again, it's like
what would be great is if you took them to court, sued them, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and that's how we got restrictions on presidential power
amazing.
Going into other countries
it,
was through online gambling apps.
Whatever it takes.
But yeah, you have seen some of these that have like come in. But then again, to Andrew's point, part of the reason why this stuff is supposed to be more accurate than other measures is because of insider trading, not in spite of it. It is because more people that are closer to the real truth are willing to put their money on it, and not just a total black box like a sports game is, where no matter how much you think you know, you don't really know until the game is played. That is like supposed to be, if you're looking at it from the like, do I know more of the future way? Is it accurate way? Then insider trading is great. It's just the question is, who's making the money?
Hey, Justin, I want to back up a little bit. You said that this is part of a broader drawdown of the libertine era. Mm-hmm. You maybe we don't have time to get into this, but you mentioned like potentially even gay marriage being in the crosshairs. Yeah. Do you see a lot of evidence for that? Is that something that you think is likely to happen?
I think that we're just in a dawning era of social conservatism. and part of it is coming from our formative years, most of our lives. We have seen the push forward of social progressivism. And I would say in our generation, the things that were the most at the forefront were, in this order: number 1, gay marriage; number 2, weed; and number 3, gambling. All 3 of those have now just been cemented into American culture. And so if at the outer edge, the most unprotected would be sports betting, that's where we're seeing social pushback now. Weed is another one. It's becoming less popular, and it is now looked at as more of just a general societal ill in the way that we didn't look at it. Like maybe it was just with stoners, but like, you know, it was like, yeah, you can't get addicted, man. No one's died of a weed overdose. You know, they made it illegal because of DuPont. Like that's that's just kind of like how it went there. And now you're seeing like, oh, is ultra high dose edibles becoming, you know, warping children's brains, yada, yada, yada. Right. So if we're seeing an erosion of those two layers, are we going to see it come back? If as the tide comes back the other direction, will we see it touch this other one? I don't know. But if I were betting,
I would bet no. And the reason is, with those 3 examples, which I think you've correctly identified, when it comes to gambling and weed, even in conversations with us where it's like, I know Justin and I at least enjoy those 2 things, but we can acknowledge that there's problems with them, right? When it comes to gay marriage, there is no societal harm that we are able to prove with that. So I think there's going to be too many of us that are like, absolutely not. You're just hurting families. Mind your own business. I don't think that the conversations are going to go the conservatives' way, the way that they can with gambling and weed, because there are provable harms. So I would bet no.
I hope you're right. I mean, like, it's somewhat moot anyway, because it was settled by the Supreme Court as it was, and not democracy anyway, right? Like Hobbs v. Oberfeld. And the court composition is largely the same. Roberts was the
No, it was
Chief
also
Justice.
passed. It was made legal in the Congress.
I might have missed that. What now?
I don't remember that.
Yeah. It was after, what's it called? After the Roe overturn. They codified it in Congress.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. That being said, I think broadly speaking, I think you're right, Jen. I think most people know enough gay folks, like, you know, that like their cousin's gay or whatever, that they're less bothered by it than they were in the 90s. A lot of the like, you allow gays to get married, pretty soon people will be marrying cows. Like, none of that happened. So that being said, though, like, having hung out with a significant amount of libertarians and conservatives over the last few years, there's a vibrant group of people that their thing is they just fucking hate Democrats. Like, that's their primary animus, is they just despise Democrats. And if Democrats really like something, they will oppose it just to piss them off. So I don't think there's enough of them to do it, but I could totally see the kind of online trolling community not really give a shit about gay marriage, but want to get rid of it just to piss off Democrats. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think we're really getting rid of any of these things. This is part of what happens when you push society forward, is that like it's usually hard to bring a temperance movement to anything that's already legal. And we saw that with alcohol, for example. Like, once it is woven into the fabric of society, you can make it harder to get, you can make it unpopular, you can do a lot of things that, you know, are restrictive of it, but it is hard to just take it away or make it illegal. So I don't view gay marriage as something that is going to go away per se. But will it be the same that it is now? Will you have politicians that will say that gay marriage is harmful to society? Possible. I mean, I think that we could return to a world where, like, right now, that's pretty unpalatable to say. Like, even the Republicans, social conservatives, you know, are not going to be like, gay marriage is terrible. Anyway, Scott Bessent's doing an amazing job at Treasury. There's not a lot of appetite for that. Will there be going forward? Possibly.
I think that there's also another possibility too, is you could see the rise of socially conservative gays. And I know that sounds weird to say, but like there's a great Chris Bliss thing, the comedian Chris Bliss, of like, this is in the 90s. What do gays want? They want to serve in the military, get married, and have kids. Wow, that's an incredibly conservative agenda that the gays have. They want to do all the things conservatives want to do, right? So I could see a situation where you get like where gays are brought into the social conservative movement, and I know that sounds weird, but like, no, we have a nuclear family. We have two parents. We've got kids. You could see I think you're seeing fracture points between transgender and gays in a lot of places. Andrew Sullivan's a good example of that. Actually, Andrew Sullivan's a pretty good example of what I'm talking about. Of like, we're gay, but also we really like religion. We really like family. We've gone too far. We need to have less licentiousness in our lives. That sort of thing. I think you could see that also happening.
I think the people that are, West Hollywood Pride attending actual gays so far outnumber these people that would possibly like slap on a MAGA hat and join the social conservative movement. Like, I think we're talking in fantasy land here. I think
actual gays? You're the gay police?
I am the gay police. I don't know. This idea that, I don't know. What are we talking about? I find this completely absurd. I think that there are too many independents that have gay people in their life. Like, this isn't, I don't know a single gay person who's like trying to become socially conservative and destroy their own marriages. Like, what are we talking about?
I'm not saying that you'd have gay people oppose gay marriage. I'm saying that a lot of the other auspices of social conservatism might enter the gay community. Of like, people need to get married. People they're staying single too long. Maybe
I thought we were talking about gay marriage. I don't know.
How about gay? I'm saying I'm just flirting here with various ideas, but I think you could see a vertical of traditionalist gays who are like socially conservative, not about gays, but about other things. But we're off topic.
No, I think that exists. Dave Rubin is a huge example of that on the right. Andrew Sullivan has been more of a third way kind of guy there on the left. I think you were correct to point out that a lot of this split over some of the neo-queer movement over the past 15 years of kind of non-binary and trans community taking more of the center stage of that movement. And you had a lot of the old growth gays that had kind of gotten most of what they wanted that were like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, is this the community that I signed up for? At least politically, you've seen some of that begin to coalesce in different ways. So that would be a counter argument to the idea that there will be a swing back on gay marriage. I only list that because I do think that those were the three buckets that, through our youth, there was like this idea of, yeah, but why not? Why has the government got to be involved in who you love and what you smoke and whether or not I can make a bet with my friend? Like, get out of my face,
I'm still 100%
Sam.
There. Me minus too. The accent. That's me 100%.
Me too. No, I mean, like, again, and this is probably why we're not going to be the greatest spokespeople for social conservatism or any kind of swing back toward it. But when I read that McKay Copkins thing that was like all about like, oh, gambling's so bad, like maybe we should be restricting vices to various different cities. The idea that we could have gambling on our phones is truly wrecking the moral soul of men. I'm like, shut up, nerd. Go outside. Like, I'm trying to bet on the World Baseball Classic because I have a fucking baby and it allows me something that I can talk to one of my best friends from high school that like, in the world of male communication, which is not exactly voluminous for people who are not aware, like most male communication is like, hey, what's up? What are you doing? I don't know. Did you see the game? Bullshit. That's like 90% of like your conversation with your best friend who you would die for, right? So it gives me something that I can talk to one of my best friends about and be like, I don't know, Venezuela plus 1.5. We bet $25 each, $50 bets on these random games that just give us something to talk about so we can be in contact. I would indeed say that betting can be wholesome. What we don't have in this country, what we do have a deficiency on is discipline. and enforcement of discipline, both personal and sometimes in these worlds. And that's where I would say that there is a room for legal framework to be put in on some of this stuff to enforce some of the outer edges of harm, while understanding that we should have the personal freedom to interact with it in a healthy way. That the existence of degenerates does not mean that you should be eliminating this option for any and everybody else.
Nailed it.
There we go. Patreon.com/we're not wrong is where you need to go. That's not a bet. That is a sure return each and every week. And this week we're going to be talking about Cuba. Yes. While what's happening in Iran continues to make its way forward, things are degenerating rapidly in the island nation of Cuba. Announcements of essentially a perestroika for people who remember the fall of the Soviet Union in the island of Cuba over the last 48 hours. There are now blackouts throughout the entire island. There are protests in the streets. What will happen? We will discuss on our Patreon episode. Let's talk about intimacy. We may be entering an intimacy crisis, posits The Atlantic, as fewer people form relationships despite humans being wired for connection. More than 40% of U.S. adults are unpartnered, and loneliness is rising. The Intimate Animal, a new book, argues that intimacy, pair bonding, touch, and social connection has been central to human survival, but modern life is disrupting those instincts. Dating apps overwhelm users, encourage unrealistic standards, and prioritize looks over qualities like kindness, while online culture is increasing distrust between men and women. At the same time, economic uncertainty and constant societal stress may be pushing people to withdraw rather than connect. Many are turning to substitutes like pornography, transactional relationships, and AI companions instead of real relationships. The core argument of the book: humans don't need new technological solutions for intimacy. We need to rebuild real human connections. Jen, are we in an intimacy crisis?
This one's tough for me. I was hoping you wouldn't go to me first because I'm feeling a lot of shut up nerd with this one. Because, I don't know. It doesn't ring true to me with my lived experience. Just because, I'm around people all the time. I travel and live in all these different places, and I make friends in the real world, and I have plenty of friends that are single and not miserable and porn addicts, and they're single because they want to be, or they just, haven't met the person. But I'm not, I feel like a lot of these articles take the exceptions to the rule, and in order to get into The Atlantic, they make it seem like, oh, we have this big problem, but people are still getting married. They're still having kids. I don't know.
Statistically at less of a clip than they have in the past, though.
Yeah. I'm one of those people that's not having kids, and it's because there's a whole world I want to see. I don't feel like it's societally, I do feel the societal pressure to do it, but at this day and age, I can just be like, fuck all y'all. I'm not going to. I feel like I value my freedom. It's not because I don't want intimacy or don't have it. I also I have female friends that have no interest in getting married because their friendships are so intimate and wonderful, and they feel completely fulfilled. So I think we're making different choices, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have human connection anymore. While I know there are very real examples, in fact, people I know of people that have withdrawn from society and don't, do well with other relationships. I think we've always had those people. I don't think there's anything new about that. So, do some people struggle to have intimacy with other people? Absolutely. Is it a crisis? I don't see it. Not in the real world. I think these Atlantic people are making bigger deals out of, the changes that the internet and apps bring. Because in my life, I just got back from a wedding from people that met on an app. So it's creating intimacy in a lot of ways. So I don't know. Maybe it's just because I have a life out in the real world that I'm not sucked into the screens all the time, but I'm surrounded by people every day that have beautiful, intimate friendships and family relationships and romantic relationships, but that's only one form of intimacy. Like, we all have different forms of intimacy in our lives. So it's like, are we in an intimacy crisis? I don't think so. I think this is just someone wanting to get published in the Atlantic and is, looking for the exceptions and trying to make it seem like they're the rule.
The book is written by a researcher at the Kinsey Institute who is the chief scientist for Match.com. So he's not against the apps. He is making an argument that there's larger, something beyond just the technological side of it. Well,
but like the main argument we saw here is that we need to rebuild real communication as if it went away. And I'm looking at it being like, I don't think it's gone away. I think that we have different tools now. Like, I know that when I went to my high school reunion, I was excited to see people, but there were a lot of people that I had not seen in 25 years, but I was still very much like, I knew about their jobs. I knew about their kids because of these communication tools. And so when we, got to see each other in real life, there was an intimacy that was actually kind of maintained from all those decades ago because the distance didn't separate us as much as would have happened, before. So it's, as much as maybe some of these apps, like, people who do get sucked into porn, like, that's a real thing, but it's also a real thing that there's some ways that these things are helping us with intimacy. So I think it's all kind of a wash. I don't think that we need to rebuild connection that never completely went away. I don't think this is a crisis situation.
Oh, by the way, add pornography to my buckets of things that were big pushes through our lives
that are definitely getting regulated.
Well, we've heard from the point of view of a happily married woman. Mr. Andrew Heaton, are we in an intimacy crisis?
Yes, I think we are. But I need to delineate something. So I have both anecdotal and statistical reasons for saying this. Anecdotally, I am a confirmed bachelor, and I'm fairly lonely and miserable. So I'm not liking life a whole lot for a lot of these reasons. But I'm also an aberration in that regard because the intimacy crisis, so to speak, doesn't afflict people like me as much. I'm kind of an odd man out. The statistical side of it tells a different story. We basically live in two different countries when it comes to relationships and social capital at this point in history. For people that are in the top 25% of earners, which would be all three people very, very, very easily that are on this panel right now, social capital has not really declined on the United States. It's very strong. When you get into the bottom half of income earners in the United States, social capital has really declined. So when you're looking at people that are in knowledge-related economies that make six figures, that derive creative and intellectual fulfillment from their careers, which would be all three of us here, we tend to also have very strong communities. We tend to live in communities that are growing and are vibrant and have a high level of hope and tend to have very active social lives and be physically fit, among other things as well. That is not true across the country. When you get below, I don't know the exact figure here, but let's say that the 75% that are in the bottom, social capital's declined a lot. And you also see that play out in terms of marriage. So, Jen, it makes sense that most of the people that you know, us all being in the same cohort, are happily married or happily single. That is statistically much more likely to occur for people that are in our echelon. Again, I'm an aberration. When you look at the marriage rates are great in the top 10% of people in the country. They're actually quite high. You're much more likely to get married if you're in the top 10%. Divorce rates are very low. When you go down into the bottom half, it's a completely different country where the marriage rates have plummeted and the divorce rates are higher. Very, very different phenomena that are going on. We can also divide this in terms of age as well, because our age cohort is different than incoming people, and in general, social lives have declined in the United States. So Gallup does polling, I think it's Gallup, on how often do you see 3 or more friends per week? And that number just tumbles around 2008, basically when smartphones came out. The amount of social events that people do aggregately across the country just declined a lot. And it's never recovered. And it's particularly pronounced for Gen Z. where Gen Z, who granted does have like a lot of relationships through their phone, and they'll watch YouTube together at separate locations, and they'll chat and know what's up. Like it's not as if it's a complete desert, but the physical intimacy of just being in the same room, that has declined markedly. So yeah, I think so. I think that there's been a real slump in terms of human connections of late. I do think we need to rebuild it, and it's very difficult to do because there's not most of the problems that we have result from us solving much larger problems. Most of the relational atrophy that we've had over the last 100 years is because we have become really good at outsourcing problems to either the market or the government. Like fertility rates are declining across the world. You see this in countries that have robust social safety nets. You see them in our country. Why is that? I think probably the main reason for it is that you used to have kids. You had to have kids because that was your retirement program. There was no Social Security. You have to have children, otherwise you will starve to death when you're old. That went away, and it's good. Like, I'm glad we've got Social Security. I'm glad that we have social safety nets and that old people are not afraid of dying and starving to death if they have children. That's a very positive development. The second order effect of that has been that people are having less kids. Jen, I'm glad that you and Joe are very happy. A lot of people aren't. There's also just demographic issues that we're concerned with. There are lots of situations where people are living alone more than they used to because we are affluent. I can afford to live by myself as a bachelor. It's not that hard to be able to live by yourself, but 50, 60 years ago, it would be much less likely that you would do that because you were spending more part of your income on housing, and you were more likely to live with your siblings or friends or something like that. And it's because we've been able to be affluent enough to afford homes that we've all decided to do it. But people are living alone in greater numbers than they have at any point in human history. And so we've ended up creating a lot of atrophy by virtue of the fact that we have so much affluence and we have so much safety, both of which are good things, but they've resulted in us being in a novel situation where we used to have very vibrant, robust relationships that came out of need and necessity. The need and necessity have gone away, which is good, but the relationships have also gone away, and that makes everybody sad and lonely. I think that there's a very good statistical argument that is high and growing and high. And for that reason, I would define it as a crisis.
I will say, anecdotally, this does seem to be a bit more of a gendered phenomenon for me. Like, the people in my life that are, like, I would describe as unhappy to miserable because of a lack of intimacy are almost all men.
Yeah.
I would not say that about female acquaintances that I have. Now, that just might be the fact that I am a guy and I have more guy friends than I do women friends, although I think I have a statistically higher number of female friends. And I do think that these digital spaces matter. And I think that they're good for all the ills of Facebook. Even if I only contact some people that I knew in high school once a year to say happy birthday, I think it's probably better that I do that versus not. But I also got out before the dating apps, and I got out. I mean, I feel like I was on the last chopper out of Saigon when it came to kind of the modern version of romance. It is a constant conversation with male friends of mine that are not having a good time right now, that it is harder to date. And it is harder to date as you get older. It is harder to meet people. It is harder to find community. And that I can't pretend that is not a thing that comes up. And so while certainly there has probably always been a version of the prototypical Barney at Moe's Tavern in our lives that is, not found somebody to pair up with. I can't help but think that maybe there's more of them now. But then again, it's so hard to feel that from our perspective. You can't really make generational comparisons about lived experiences. Right?
And it's tough too, because what generations want are completely different. Like, I think one of the issues that's happening right now is we are in a very chaotic state when it comes to courtship. So I think the article kind of touches on this, but our best evidence based on contemporary hunter-gatherers, hunter-gatherers all live in really resource-deprived places, so they might be operating in a very different way than our ancestors were, since our ancestors were living in different environments. But hunter-gatherers tend to not be lifelong monogamous. They tend to pair up for 4 to 6 years, so basically like one kid's early childhood. And they're serial monogamists, so we can infer that might be genetically what we're wired for. Once we get into recorded civilization and agriculture, like pairing up, like marriage was an economic and domestic consideration. It really didn't have anything to do with romance. Like for about, I don't know, the last 2,000 years, but probably the last 180,000 years or so, romance was considered this fun, temporary affliction that you might get at some point in your youth that may or may not be correlated with who you marry. And but who you married, this was an extremely important thing that was about your household, the transmission of wealth, the division of labor within your household, having kids. Like that could not be left up to something as ephemeral and silly as romance. No one did that. That's why they were all arranged marriages. And then you don't have contemporary dating as we think of it now until about 1870. Like it's about 100 years old. Just the idea that a guy and a gal will go out on dates and figure out who they want to marry, that's about 100 years old. It's like it's quite new as an institution. And once that had been around for about 100 years, we developed dating apps, which I think have been there are obviously good examples of it coming out of there. I think we're going to view it as largely a misstep in retrospect. But yeah, like to your point, Justin, like looking at like what we want today, like I want a best friend partner that I'm also sexually attracted to and have kids with. That's not really what like my great grandparents were looking for. That would have been a bonus. But you go back just a few generations ago, you kind of had to get married. Like even my grandparents, like my grandfather didn't know how to do very basic things around the house, and my grandmother couldn't earn money, and like so they had to do it. And their pairing was different than what we're doing today.
I will say that of all the men I know who are chronically lonely or talk about being lonely, one thing that is consistent among them is that they live a lifestyle that previously used to only be attainable by Howard Hughes. Like they are bon vivants that very rarely stay in the same place. They want a lot out of life. And that might be something, and that's something that I would say goes beyond people that would consider themselves lonely. I think that is generally a lifestyle thing that everybody has felt, especially for us, as you pointed out, Heaton, us in the top 25% sitting in our balloon basket, looking about the world and wondering where we're going to land next. Like there is an expectation that, yeah, I should see the world and I should do all these adventures and I should be able to speak multiple languages or experience these things that I only used to be able to see on the television or movies. And we do. It got cheap enough for us to be able to do it. You could fit it into a upper middle class to middle class lifestyle, and hell, with credit, you can do it cheaper than, or making less than that. You just eventually will have to pay the piper or live your life in credit servitude. But you can have it. You can have it now, and then the question becomes, well, why don't I deserve it? Shouldn't I be able to experience all these things? What I think we might find out is that there is an opportunity cost to a lot of this, and that sometimes the expectations that we might have for a partner might not match what we believe we deserve. And that goes beyond whether or not we think that they're hot enough or they're funny enough or they're kind enough, but also whether or not they fit into my lifestyle that I deserve. It's another vector that does eliminate people for whom might not see it now. They might just be on different paths in their lives. They might, be in different worlds. And so if you take that and say, all right, we already have X amount of things that people decide whether or not they have a mate on, and now we're introducing this other version of it, then yeah, we're probably just cutting off more people that you would otherwise pair up with if you were just sitting in the same town.
Well, the algorithm thing too, I do think that is a complete game shift. Jen, you met Joe prior to online dating apps being ubiquitous, right? That's not something you went through?
Oh, yeah. I met him before phones.
for mobile phones,
Smartphones,
Yeah.
not like Alexander Graham Bell.
We met
Not a
during rotary
vampire.
phones. Like, it's been a long time.
So the stats are fairly abysmal on them. Obviously, there's some success. There, like most relationships now are through online apps. So it's not as if they're ineffective. The statistical success rate of them is pretty low. I'll say anecdotally, they make you feel miserable. I really do not like them. And I've had some very nice relationships come out of them. You've met some of them. So it's not like they've been completely a desert. But God, you get off of them and you're like, I'm an unfuckable person who's going to die alone. I mean, like all the time. So whatever you guys think about me, I'm on Hinge right now. I get about 1 like per week. That's the current rate that I have. So on this app in the entire DC metropolitan area, 1 woman per week thinks I'm attractive on these apps. I think in person I would do better than that, but that's my experience. And statistically, everybody's shooting for higher than they probably would. I'm sure I do that, where I'm like, well, this last gal I dated was very attractive. Why don't I date somebody? Maybe I'm not that hot. Maybe I should be dating somebody less. And then you flip it. Like one of my friends sent me a stat the other day, I suppose to make me feel better, that if you're a guy and you're if you're 6 feet tall and you make 6 figures, that's like 0.5% of the population. Yeah. I don't know. This is what my friend told me, but it's like less than 1%. So I was like, on the one hand, that makes me feel better because that's me. I make 6 figures. I'm 6 feet tall, medium penis. Like, should have a lot going for me there.
Is that a line on the app? Does it ask you to measure?
I think the joke is it's 6 figures, 6 feet of height, 6 inches of cock. I've not measured mine since high school, so I don't remember what it is, but I'm fairly confident I'm a bog solid medium, and I'm fine with that. I do think, Jen, I think I've got small dick energy because women are always pleasantly surprised when I take my pants off. Like I definitely come off as a guy with a smaller dick than I do. It's a nice little surprise for everybody.
Better than the alternative, man. Yeah. Ooh, that's a weird little doorknob you got there.
Yeah. No, I'm very happy when ladies encounter my median bell curve distribution, but anyway, this putting me in 1% of people, like if that is the bare minimum that you're setting it at, I have to date a guy that's 6 feet tall. I have to date a guy that has 6 figures. Like it's really not that many guys. And then on the male end, like we're awful. Like I think one of the reasons that we're so miserable is men, and I'm part of this, we are now experiencing what it is like to be assessed purely on how physically hot we are. I think women were already used to this phenomenon and we're already not really enjoying it, but knew it.
Yep.
For guys, this is kind of a new phenomenon. Turns out we don't like it. We don't enjoy this feeling. And the guy expectations are horrible because we'll watch some film and go, well, why can't I date somebody that looks like Scarlett Johansson? And then, there's like 6 bots on Bumble. And you're like, well, I just saw one on there, so I guess there's a hot girl here, and like they're probably AI. And so everybody's trying to date the top 2 hottest people on the app. They're fucking each other. Everybody else is alone. The algorithms are miserable. Like Pareto's principle holds, and it holds for the dating apps in a very unhealthy way.
So I just want to point out something that we just did in this conversation about intimacy, which is that, and I think it always happens, but we ended up making intimacy synonymous with romantic relationship. And I just want to point out that there's lots of different ways to have intimacy and lots of different relationships. Like, I understand that you're, Andrew, looking for a partner, but you have some very intimate, wonderful friendships.
That's
and
true.
I know that you're close with your family. And it's like, I think what we need to do when judging this particular topic is really expand it beyond romantic relationships. Because I think it is possible to have tons of intimacy in your life while not having a partner, but we tend to just not look at that as a society. And I think we really should focus on it more.
I
Okay,
think that
counterpoint. No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't do that. We should
Why?
be focusing on romantic, intimate relationships because I do believe that those are cornerstones for which society flourishes. I think that those are the cornerstones to societies, to cities, to communities. These are the things that wind up weathering longer. The people that I know that have a lot of friends that can go to and don't have romantic relationships wind up using those relationships to talk about how they don't have a romantic relationship. It is something that is hardwired in us that we desperately want.
But we are in our 40s. I think what you're going to find if you go to like senior living communities, people lose their romantic partnerships. It's very common to have one person die, and at the end of your life, you find yourself surrounded by friends. In fact, I was just reading this whole thing where it was talking about, people that think that they need to have kids because, who's going to be with me when I die? And it turns out the vast majority of people die surrounded by friends. Those are the intimate relationships that carry people through. And I think it is a fallacy in our 40s that we focus so much on, like, I'm with you that it's important and it does make people happy. Some romantic relationships, though, make you absolutely miserable. So it's like, those are difficult relationships. And I just think that if you're talking about intimacy and if you're kind of looking at your own life or society at large and only focusing on one particular kind, I think that's a mistake because there are so many different kinds. And if we take a second to look at our own lives and look at like how much intimacy we have, I think we'll be surprised if we expand the range that counts, how much we each have if there is other kinds that count other than romantic relationships.
Okay, and I'll let Heaton talk in a second, but let me just say this. If we are looking at it and saying, hey, I know you're miserable, but also look at your life. You're happy. Then it's not going to get us anywhere.
This isn't a discussion about happy or miserable. It's about intimacy. You can be miserable but have intimate relationships.
But I guess what I'm saying is I don't think that's a problem right now. I think people do probably have more friendships today or describe themselves as having more friendships today than we would in the 70s or the 30s. But we have this problem.
Crisis if you have more friendships. But we have this problem
yet. And so that is what I am saying. If just saying you should be happy doesn't make people happy.
That's not what I thought.
Your point is taken, Jen. I don't disagree with you qualitatively. We do get hung up on thinking that intimate relationships have to be romantic. I had on what's the guy's name? I had on the director of the Harvard Happiness Project. It has a more full title than that, but the Harvard longitudinal study on happiness, et cetera, 2 years ago, Walter something. And he talked about how the overall happiness arc for people is really about intimate relationships, not romance. That there's really not a discernible amount of life satisfaction that has to be predicated on romance. There are lots of people that have very fulfilling, happy lives that have vibrant friendship groups. So it's not an obligatory prerequisite. I don't disagree on that. My life's a good example of that. I'm miserably lonely when it comes to romance, and that kind of bleeds into my day-to-day life. But I absolutely have a group of very good friends and a good community and family, as you point out. But I would push back again in we're all in the top 25%. Which is the place where those social connections are strongest, and it is different for the rest of the country. I did an episode on the political orphanage maybe 6 months ago called Fight the Friendship Recession with Parties, where I brought on a guy that wrote a book called How to Throw a Party. And in researching that episode and putting it together, the amount of just going to events that the average American is doing has gone down. The amount of close friendships that people have has declined. Again, it's bottom heavy. It's not top heavy, but there are a lot of people, and it's grown, that have fewer friends than they've historically had, have fewer intimates, and that would mean I think we still have a crisis there in terms of loneliness. It's just that it's segmented socioeconomically.
And we've gone full circle.
Yeah. Let me just say, this kind of goes to the gambling thing too. I think that we have a risk problem in our modern culture, in that we tend to fetishize all the things that can go wrong and imbalance what we are risking by not having it go right. That is something that bubbles up a lot in modern commentary of like, yeah, but what if? And I'm not saying that we should be imprudent and we should leap before we look, but I do think that we have come to a point where that has become corrosive. And part of what I see in inherent in conversations like this are people that are afraid they're missing out on something when they see the beginning of it, and they judge it against the universe as opposed to what could come from a relationship. And part of that, I guess, is the glittering lures of the apps and everything else that comes along with it. But I don't know. It's something that I've wondered about for a while. We're not wrong pod at gmail.com is where you need to write this show. We covered LA hospice fraud on the last program. I Fixed Healthcare writes, I see the three main problems in the United States healthcare system as middlemen, research costs, and regulation. Insurance companies and government programs act as middlemen negotiating prices, which encourages providers to inflate costs and hide real prices from patients. A better system would remove these middlemen and give people direct control over healthcare funds, forcing providers to compete on price and quality while still helping lower income patients. Emergency care should be publicly run, like fire or police services, and to handle high research costs, the government could offer financial rewards for treatments that successfully reach the markets.
Sure.
I would be happy with the system. That sounds like a good verticals, in my opinion.
Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. writes, regarding health insurance and nonprofits, I believe Heaton was thinking of Blue Cross Blue Shield. There are nonprofit member organizations within the BCBS umbrella. United Healthcare is a for-profit company, as Jen pointed out.
Jen was right, and you were correct, and thank you for that. You were also right. I was thinking of Blue Cross Blue Shield.
To be fair, I had to look it up on ChatGPT in the middle of the show. So
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Let me read your chart, writes, regarding Medicare payments. Payments to physicians and providers make up only 8 to 10% of healthcare spending in America. This figure is often reported as a higher number, as the authors will find a way to try to add another field to make it seem like doctors are the main driver of costs, i.e. I have seen articles listing payment to physicians and hospitals or physicians and pharmaceutical companies to get the figure cost to 30+%. In inflated adjusted dollars, Medicare payments to physicians decreased 33% between 2001 and 2025. Payments to hospitals, meanwhile, have kept up with inflation. Medicare cut physician rates by 2.83% in 2025, but increased hospital payments by 2.9%. Presently in my field, Medicare pays between 25 and 33% of commercial insurance rates. Although now commercial insurers are in a race to the bottom as the ability to negotiate has largely been removed and they slash rates year after year, making practice heavily reliant on commercial payers. Regarding not-for-profit hospitals, there really is no real difference in how they operate versus their for-profit counterparts. They still operate with a profit motive, but simply not to have shareholders expecting dividends. To maintain not-for-profit status, they just have to ensure that money taken in is spent inside the organization. Lavish bonuses and jet leasing for the executives and massively increasing mid-level administrators counts for this requirement. Some of the greediest administrators for which I have ever worked have been in nonprofit systems.
The system is absolute trash. All of that is so unfair and infuriating.
Why wait? Right. Every time someone brings up government-run healthcare in other countries, the downside is, well, the wait times are terrible. But why? Why is it given that there are long wait times? Why not just adequately fund the system with enough clinics and doctors to meet demands? Seems like a solvable problem. No. What am I missing?
Honestly, my experience in other countries, I got sick in Germany. I'm sure I've told this story before, but like they have apothecas where they have doctors all over the place. I walked across the street. I was seen immediately. It was fast, efficient. And the next day they called me to see how I was feeling. It was some of the best medical care I've got in my life. And I waited 0 minutes. So it's like when they say this, I think it's a scare tactic. I think there are some waits, but there are countries that have figured this out. They do adequately fund the system. They do have doctors all over the place. I think it's, in a lot of times, it's just not true.
You often hear this not for immediate checkups, but for like big serious things.
Yeah,
like
hip replacements, things that are not immediately medically necessary, but things that you'd want to have done quickly. And it varies dramatically from country to country. Listener, in answer to your question, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. And with healthcare, the issue is, I think that healthcare, like every other field of human existence, is subject to supply and demand. It is not an optional relationship that we designate on what we think it should be in. It's just there forever. And so you can have things publicly funded. There are obviously countries that do that, but the number of doctors and the number of hospitals is relatively inelastic. So you get more of them, but you have to build the hospital, you have to train the doctors. While that process is going on, if you juice demand and you have inelastic supply, you're going to get longer wait times. You're going to get some kind of rationing by time. As Justin points out, it also depends on what we're talking about. With ER services, Jen, it sounds like they've knocked it out of the park in Germany. That's great. I think the German healthcare system is probably a better model for the United States than the British healthcare system. But when you go to the UK, that I'm more familiar with, the upshot is that you're not going to go bankrupt. Like, that's just not a thing anybody's worried about. That's a terrific element to it. The downside is they try really hard to ration stuff. They like the doctors are encouraged to go, well, I don't know, it doesn't seem that bad. Let's hold back. You've got a hip replacement. You might be on the wait list for 6 months. There are going to be pros and cons to these various things. That's why I want to have, I basically want the American verticals to just do what they're good at. My main insight from our last episode is that I think that the combination of government as piggy bank, as Jen eloquently pointed out, combined with private provider is a fairly inefficient system. I don't think it works terribly well. I would rather have the money we're currently putting into the public side of things, keep it the same, just have federally funded clinics that could walk in, as Jen is describing, and release the private sector to be able to expand supply, be more dynamic, be more innovative, have competition work, and that sort of thing.
My thing is this. It's hard. It's hard to run any massive program. And so whenever we get into these things where we're like, oh, it should be private, it should be public, blah, 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 blah. I get really frustrated when we keep obsessing about blueprints and not buildings. Like these are like very complicated systems to run no matter how you want to do it. And we can make an argument on whether or not some systems are kind of more designed to fail than others. But in general, all of them are complicated to run. All of them can fail. All of them can be bad. It does not, I don't know. We just get so obsessed with the dogma.
I don't know that we can have a good system at our size. Like, the EU's not doing this. There is no EU healthcare. There's German healthcare. There's Swedish healthcare. There's Spanish healthcare. They're not playing with us at a continental level. We are. And as a result, we don't really have one healthcare system. We have like 7 different healthcare systems. Medicare is kind of like a Canadian healthcare system. The Veterans Administration and Native Americans is like how the UK handles stuff. It's like we've got all these different things that are going on that makes it incredibly complex and labyrinthine. I don't know. I want to take a crack at it, try to fix it, but I'm the cynic in me goes, I don't know that you can really do this at a giant level and have it work.
Well, and this is the other thing. It's like, oh, well, why not just fund it? It's like money does not automatically solve things. There's a lot of problems in America that we put gobsmacking amounts of money toward, and some of these problems have gotten worse. Now, does that mean that?
And throwing more money at this one doesn't make sense, because one of the main problems we have is how much extraction happens administratively in so many different parts of this system. So it's like if you throw more money at it, you're just having more extraction. Like, we have to fix the system.
There's a hole in the bucket.
Yes.
What do you mean Real Medicare writes? They're not ACA compliant, but that's because they follow the CMS, and Medicare isn't ACA compliant. They have to cover everything Medicare covers, and they're the only way to
get... There's like, they are not... What are they talking about?
Real Medicare. Whatever the Real Medicare thing is.
But then it says they have to cover everything Medicare covers. So are we talking about Medicare?
Oh, I'll have to go look.
I think that this, Jen, I think
edited this down too much.
I could be wrong, but this strikes me as you were talking in the last episode about Medicare versus Medicare Advantage. I think that's what this is referring
those
to.
private things. Okay.
Yeah. Supplemental plans are great, but they're expensive because covering everything at or near 100% costs a lot of money. Quote unquote, real Medicare with no commercial plan is garbage. It'll leave you with a 20% coinsurance on almost everything. And guess what? Medicare doesn't comply with the ACA, so there's no cap on how much debt you can rack up in 1 year. It's so much worse than the Advantage plans.
With the Advantage plans, you're at the mercy of the private market. They do deny claims in a way that Medicare is legally not allowed to. This just doesn't ring true to me based on someone who has been watching congressional hearings about this for years. So
I do believe that this person who wrote in is somebody who's within the healthcare system, but that is their perspective.
no, it's fine. But there's been so much testimony about Medicare Advantage plans basically bankrupting people. So I think we need to be really careful when we decide to say, I don't want Medicare, which has rules and has government funding, and that you want to put yourself into the private plans because they say that you get eyeglasses twice a year. Like, I don't know. Be very careful. There's been a lot of testimony about it.
Doctors are regular billing brings us on home. The idea is that doctors are overbilling isn't really how the system works anymore. As of 2024, about 77% of physicians are employed by hospitals or health systems. Most of us don't bill anything ourselves. Billing is handled by administrative departments, and many physicians barely understand the details of it. It's easy to blame doctors when a bill feels unfair, but most of us are just trying to take care of patients while navigating a complicated system. We're the ones in the hospital at 2 a.m. talking with families and managing critically ill patients and navigating tough losses. Meanwhile, many of the cost control decisions are being made far from the bedside, sometimes by insurers or PBMs, denying medications in the name of saving money. I know you're all just doing your best analyzing healthcare, but I wish for a day y'all could come and join the rounds for a 24-hour shift and see how difficult it is to navigate this system. I feel terribly for patients who are likely to get a large bill from an overly expensive hospitalization that may not serve them in the long term. But the alternative, and dealing with constant threats of lawsuits for telling patients that also doesn't seem particularly appealing. It sucks to work this hard, spending our years of our lives studying, delaying any gratification, staying up 28 hours at a time, trying so hard to help patients, and suffering losses with families just for someone to say, doctors fucking hate to hear this, but they're the bad guys too because they are constantly overbilling. Before Jen responds, let me just say this. If you want vitriol directed to you at an over the average level, try making content for free on the internet because that is a great way to get a lot of criticism for stuff. So look, we all have our crosses to bear. Jen.
This is exactly the email that I was expecting to get. So let me be crystal clear about how I feel about doctors. Doctors, nurses, and everyone that helps them take care of patients that study for many years and devote your lives to saving people, you are angels on earth. When it comes to our medical system, all that should matter are the doctors and your support team and the patients. And the problem with this system, I mean, you've said it yourself that like the cost control decisions are made far from the bedside. You have the insurers, you have the PBNs. I actually am aware that hospitals are now buying doctors. And so now they're the ones that are overcharging in order to make this billing system work. And every single part of this system, when you watch these hearings, every single one of them has well, yes, we overbill, but the other guys are doing fill in the blanks. And so the doctors that are independent, they overbill. You know what I'm saying is true. They do this, but their excuse is, but the insurance doesn't pay enough. But Medicare doesn't pay enough. We heard it in some of the other emails. Medicare only pays 33% and it's always going down. All of this is true. And this is why the system is such trash. If this world made any sense, or especially if our country made any sense, I would like to see actors get paid like $100,000 and see the doctors getting $10 million when they, cure cancer. For every bell that gets rung in a cancer wing, a doctor should get $5 million. Like, the system doesn't make sense. I feel for you guys because it has to be so awful to know that you can treat a patient physically, but you can't do it because they can't afford it. It is so fucked up on every level. And so I would love to fix this for you. But when we are talking about billing, you can't leave the doctors and hospitals out of it. You can't, because you do overbill. You do. And if it's your hospital that is overbilling because the insurance isn't paying you or because Medicare isn't paying you, you're still a part of the billing problem. But when it comes to like the actual care, you're our guardian angels. Like, you're the people that we are trying to like shift the money out of administration and give it all to you. So it's like, please don't misunderstand me. I appreciate you so much that I want to change this system so that you get so much more money and so that more students want to go into your field and save more people. But now people don't want to do it because to get into being a doctor or even a nurse, you go hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt. You don't pay that much. You do have to deal with the billing. You do have to deal with the fact that like, I can save you, but you can't afford the cancer med. So it's like, let's find another solution. That has to be heartbreaking and terrible. And you're the ones that has to have these conversations. Like, we have made your jobs too hard. So everything that I'm saying is in the goal of having you never have to worry about billing again, whether it's for your patients or for yourselves. You should be outrageously rich. So that's my goal with everything that I'm saying. But when we talk about this system, we do have to acknowledge the billing fraud. It's everywhere, including the places that you work.
Real quick, when we're talking about the economics of this, when I say doctor, I probably just mean provider.
Yes.
So I'm not talking about you specifically vocationally, which, by the way, I think most doctors hate this shit. All the doctors I talk to, they don't want to be dealing with billing all the time. They want to be curing stuff, right? From the consumer perspective, we're not able to see that. It's opaque. That's one of the big problems in the system, is that everything is so opaque. So I'm talking about providers, which would include the administrators, everybody else. And that's who I'm referring to. But more specifically, I want to throw this out. You mentioned, I wish y'all would come join for rounds for a 24-hour shift and see how difficult it is to navigate the system. Okay. Reach out to me. Like, truly, like next week on the program, I literally spent a day in prison. Like, I drove out to Maine and hung out with murderers for a day. Like, if I get to wear a lab coat, like, I'll fly out to Cincinnati and do the rounds with you for 24 hours. That actually sounds really cool. Reach out, please.
Yeah, my dad, he had a really gnarly heart attack back in 2012, and I actually spent pretty much 3 weeks nonstop living at UCLA Medical Center. And so I did get to talk to a lot of doctors and nurses, and, you know, they stopped by my dad's room on rounds every day, you know, like all the white coats. And so I have spent time there, and I have been able to appreciate what you do. And I think Andrew's right that, like, when we get the bill on our patient side, we just see that the bill came from the place that treated us. So that is why, like, when I was saying doctors, like, I am aware from the hearings that I've watched that a lot of times those bills are coming from the private hospital companies that have purchased you, essentially. There's also one that comes to mind when we had, now this has been legislatively kind of solved for the most part, but we had a problem with anesthesiologists, that they were owned privately. And so a lot of times you would go to an in-network hospital, and then you would get a bill separately for your anesthesiologist because that person wasn't in network. So that would be a surprise bill because that person who was in your surgical team wasn't actually working for the hospital. They were private. And so you got this huge bill because that person was out of network and you had no way to know that as a patient. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, the scammy billing on our end, we kind of call you all doctor. Like, when I go into a surgery and there's a bunch of people wearing masks, if there's 8 of you, I don't know what the difference is. You're all doctors. So that's, Andrew, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, because a lot of doctors, like you said, like, it's not the actual doctor that's doing the billing.
No,
it's your administrative
they don't know either,
assistant or whoever. Like, but you know that person is told in a lot of cases, you need to upcharge this or else we won't get what we need to cover our costs.
And they're not even the ones doing that. Like, one of my ex-girlfriends that you both know was a nurse, and most of the time we were dating, her job was coding the shit doctors had already done. Mm-hmm. Like, they would say, this is what we did. It would then go to somebody else that would go, all right, I'm pretty sure that's QR 528. We could probably even bill it as QR 258B and add an extra $80 to it. And so, like, the doctors don't even know. Justin, you jumped over to One Medical recently, didn't you? Mm-hmm. I love One Medical. Good example of the market innovating a good healthcare provider. My doctor there in Austin, who's my all-time favorite doctor, Robert Duhaney. Shout out to Bob Duhaney. They're in Austin, Texas. Like, he switched over to
shout out to Bob Duhaney. Wow.
He's great. He goes by Robert. I don't know that he's even Bob, but like, no, Robert
Duhaney. Dr. Bob.
Robert Duhaney's fucking great. I love Robert Duhaney. I would, if it weren't for the fucking stupid regulations that are saddling the private side of this equation, I would absolutely keep him as my doctor, and we would just do it remotely. I love that guy. I can't legally fucking do that though. But when he switched over to One Medical, he did it because he was tired of being a conveyor belt doctor. Like, I had a doctor like that when I was in New York, where, like, you could tell that he and his staff were just trying to get you in and out as quickly as possible in order to get as many people through. Robert Duhaney wants to be a doctor. He likes treating people. He switched over to One Medical so that he doesn't have to deal with all that bullshit. And he gets like a dedicated half hour with every patient. And I think most doctors are in that camp where they're not actually seeing the billing process. There's somebody else that's doing that. That's part of what makes this all so difficult is they can't go, by the way, if we do this particular thing, it's going to cost you X amount. Like Wallace, who got really banged up, he's in the other room convalescing right now, got attacked last week and then he got an infection that resulted from that. That's a situation where I can get in real time a cost analysis because the doctor that's there, the veterinarian, it goes, these are all the things that we think we need to do. This is how much it's going to cost. Doctors can't really do that. It's very opaque. I think this is one of the better arguments in terms of single payer healthcare is that you're just never going to have a functional market because there's too many layers of opacity. There's also too much information asymmetry between the consumer and the provider to allow for a functional market. I don't go that far. I do think that, again, the Heaton two verticals model is what I want. But presently, I think we can definitively say that opacity is there and that the transparency or immediacy of knowing how much stuff's going to cost is not present.
Too positive. Fuck doctors. Change out of your scrubs when you go to the restaurant. We get it.
Oh my God.
Yimby conquers the Everglades.
When I go and hang out with this doctor for a day, do I get to wear a lab coat or does that mean people expect me to do surgery?
Whatever.
I'm going to wear a lab coat.
You're going to catch me if you can it. Yimby conquers the Everglades was our second topic. Yes, on my foundation, Gator writes, Jen, just hear me out. If we put condos on the backs of alligators, we can train them to walk the entire building to stores and other places we need to go. This solves the car issue, and it's a new mode of public transportation. There's no way this plan can go wrong. Love the show. Thank you for all you do.
Amen. Now I want to build in the Everglades.
Yep. Sign me up. I'll move to Florida when this becomes real.
Just put Chipotle in the alligator rotation. That's all I ask.
And finally, dress for the job you want brings us on home. I think it's important for everyone to know that Justin's image of himself contributing intelligently to the Everglades development projects is a beaming, bearded Florida man who is shirtless because he just took off his Show Me Your Tits t-shirt and put on an American flag baseball cap that says, thinking. Yes. Yes. Yes, my friend. We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On PX3 this week, Reese Gorman of Notice. It will not be Notice for long. It is rebranding as either the Washington Star or the Washington Sun. Big rebrand for them, hiring a bunch of Washington Post people. But Reese Gorman's a great reporter, and he talks to us about the fallout of the Texas race and all the stuff that's happening in Oklahoma right now with Mark Wayne Mullen going to DHS. And then on Friday, Evan Scrimshaw and Ryan Jakubowski, two great political and election commentators. We do a little draft trying to pick the Senate races that will be the closest. We're not even picking winners, just which ones will be the closest. It's a really fun conversation about some of our priors that are going into these Senate races. It is all on PX3. Jen, what is sizzling on the congressional dish?
So the latest episode that we just dropped, I think, is the most important one we've done in the 119th Congress, and I really encourage everyone to listen to it. This was a shadow hearing. So basically, the Republicans are refusing to hold hearings about a lot of things, but ICE is one of them. And there was a whistleblower. He was a lawyer for ICE, and then he was asked to do training. And when he got to the training part, the stuff that he discovered was absolutely unacceptable. The Republicans didn't want to hear it, so the Democrats had an unofficial hearing to take his testimony. So I listened to that, and then I also listened to the testimony from the heads of ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. And so you get to hear the testimony compared to what the officials are saying. It's really fascinating. We also have some issues with warrants. I talked about it earlier in the episode, but one of the reasons I'm so fired up about judicial warrants being required is that DHS, they are not getting judicial warrants to enter our homes. It is unconstitutional. And then the explanations that they give in Congress, I researched them and they are so completely full of holes. And so, this is really important information. I don't feel like the American public has it. And I will warn you, I am angry in this episode. I am angry at the entire Republican Party for their abdication of their responsibility in Congress. It's just gotten so beyond unacceptable. So please listen to that episode. Even if you don't like me when I'm mad, just deal with it. But the information is really important in this one.
Heaton, what about the orphanage?
I brought on Brink Lindsay to talk about his book, which tackles the compelling question of, if we are more affluent now, why is everybody miserable? Which I think is a pretty good question. Like I've done a lot of research on this. We are more affluent now. Like in any cohort you look at in the American experience, everybody's doing better than they were in the 80s or the 50s. There are individual exceptions to this, but statistically, economically, we're all doing better. We all have more material comfort. We all have more disposable income. We live like gods compared to people from 100 years ago. I typically am swayed by this logic. My mom was visiting this last weekend, and I found out that my great-grandfather had appendicitis, like his appendix burst, and he kept plowing the field for like 3 days in incredible pain because he would just starve. Like it was back during the Dust Bowl. You couldn't not farm, you would die. So like I look on that and go, I'm doing great. Like compared to that. That being said, that argument falls on deaf ears. The argument of, hey, you're better off than your grandparents works on me. It doesn't work on other people. Why is that? I brought on Brink Lindsay. He makes a very compelling argument that while, yes, I am getting the economic side of that correct, the stats back me up, I am missing a whole other realm of stuff that's going on that we need to pay attention to and come up to problems with. What those things are that I have been missing, what the solutions to those problems are, those are filled in by Mr. Brink Lindsay on the Political Orphanage this week.
There we go. Great content for you to enjoy betwixt now and then. When is then? The next time that we all join together next Wednesday. Or you can get the Patreon episode if you're not a cheap shithead. Anyway, for Jen Briney and Andrew Heaton, I'm Justin Robert Young telling you that we're not wrong. My bet on the United States over the Dominican Republic giving 1.5 runs was.
Poor Justin.
Dog and Pony Show audio.